Final hour Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. The Blue Jays have wrapped up a win today. Afternoon game down in Texas. And they beat the Rangers 4-0. Waiting to hear what happened on Gausman. He had a no-hitter going through 5. He'd only thrown, I think, 58 or 59 pitches, and he got pulled from the game. So something happened to him.
Uh-oh.
The bullpen actually held up for him, though, which is pretty sweet. And last night, they lost, but Bowden Francis had himself a great outing again.
Guy's
he
good,
looked
man.
really good,
He
man.
did look good. He looked really good.
Yes, and that's a good sign. And, the news today, Bo Bichette has been placed on the IL. He was a late scratch, prior to the game last night. They were calling it a contusion. Turns out it was a fracture. He broke his finger.
Yeah. And Vladdy, what a turnaround. 30 dingers, man.
Couple of home runs. Like prior to I guess last night's game, Vladdy had really struggled. I don't think he had registered a hit in 6 straight games, or I guess he had a few hits over the weekend. But yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle for Vladdy, but he really came alive, and bats are a bit alive.
Hey, do you remember what we were talking about? Like their 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top of the lineup at the beginning of the season. How miserable
terrible.
that was. It was
terrible.
Yeah, they were moving pieces around. Remember, like Springer was he was hitting like 6th and 7th in the lineup, and Bichette they moved back to I think the 6th spot in the lineup at some point. And yeah, Vladdy had 2 home runs today, and 3 hits. So that's big because he had hit a little bit of a lull recently. Some people speculating like, did he get hurt? Is something going on with him? But that's what I love about Vladdy. Like he's a baller, man. Like Vladdy wants to play. He plays. Like you see that TFC game last night where they're actually in a playoff spot right now. They're in a hunt, and John Herdman, I guess, has done a decent job to try to get them back on, back on the right path here. And Lorenzo Insigne, who is an Italian player they brought in a couple of years ago, they paid a fortune for. And he hasn't really been – it hasn't been successful. It hasn't gone well. Fans have not been overly happy. Last night was a big match, and he pulled himself from the match. I guess he had like a calf strain or a hamstring issue last night. And this is something you don't hear too often. Here's what Herdman had to say about that injury post-game last night.
No, I mean, he had a tight cough, so – yeah, it was disappointing. I think he was starting to tighten, and it's a game where a player like that has to stay on the field and help you win a football match. He has to. I mean, that's what he's came to this club for, to win these big games. So, unfortunately, he was tight, and he had to come out.
Kind of interesting comments. I mean, he's basically like, I don't know why he came out. He pulled himself from the game, and he shouldn't do that.
That was basically, if I could have, I would have told him to stay on the field.
Yes.
Yeah, he was very careful with his words.
Roger Dorn.
That was effectively Dorn.
Lou Brown. That was Lou Brown on Dorn. He's just like, that's.
Was it Dave? Was it? Which is the guy where he's like, you got injured in that Peterborough game. He's like, no, I got a cold in the in
Ned Braden.
What was that? No, was his like, he's a mess. Dave's a mess, whatever that guy's name.
Yeah. Was that in Slapshot?
Slapshot, yeah.
Slapshot. He's like, yeah. That's basically what it is. You didn't know. You know the injury, but, man, he was not mincing his words. He was just kind of like,
that is just such a.
I didn't like it.
Like that's 35 under at the no balls open. Like to have the audacity to just, and in this business you can never question. But when his own coach is saying we just needed the guy to be out there, it's like, that's just spitting in the face of your teammates, the organization, anyone that signed your paycheck. Like that's just gross.
Yeah. That's it exactly. That's from the horse's mouth. That's John Herdman saying that. Like, that's not a doctored clip. That's saying, hey, probably could have used one of our best players staying in the game. Like, basically questioning how injured were you and how much were you willing to fight through. Because, again, Toronto FC, they're in a hunt right now. They got a real shot at, being a playoff team. And the last few years have been miserable for this franchise, and a big part of turning things around is Herdman. Herdman coming in and getting these guys on the right page, and they lost to Columbus, And Insigne, I guess, is maybe in the bit of a doghouse there with Herdman. But at the same time, he's got the power to pull himself. He's still making all that money. I don't know. Does he care? I guess we'll find out, and we'll see what happens the next time they hit the pitch. Matt Chatham later in the hour on Week 3 in the NFL. Jets and Patriots tonight. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come later this hour as well. And we'll announce our winner for the trip to the President's Cup in Montreal. We can't wait for that. It's going to be exciting in Montreal next week. And everything I hear out of Montreal, they're buzzing about these young kids and kind of excited by the idea that the Habs are ready to take a step. You know, I'll believe that when I see it. But to get into that, among other things, here's our TSN Hockey Insider. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here's Pierre LeBrun. How you doing, Pierre?
What's going on, gentlemen?
Well, you do a lot of work with RDS, and you're well connected to that market. Should there be reason for optimism in Montreal this year that they can take some big step and maybe sniff a playoff spot?
I mean, listen, they're going to take a step, I think. I think what is unknown, even by those running the team, is just how big a step that's going to be. That's the reality of it. And, you know, often what you hear when camp starts is a bit of spin, obviously, about the expectations for the year. And the official expectation from Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon is, you know, they hope to be in the mix. The reality is that truly is their expectation behind the scenes, too. I don't think they view this as a playoff team yet. And personally, if you're asking me, I think that's way too much of a step for them. They don't look like a playoff team to me. But
Pierre.
I do think there'll be some serious growth there. You know, they continue to add pieces. But it's a very young blue line that's going to continue to make mistakes. A few teams allowed more grade A's last year against Montreal, and they really need to cut down on that. They need to really improve their special teams, which were brutal last year. But growth, yeah, I could see growth. I mean, if all goes well and they're actually healthy for once, I could see them playing real games in March before they miss out.
How important is that blue line in this process, Pierre? You mentioned the idea of taking a step and kind of shrinking the rope a little bit on the guys on the back end there, but they're all young. A lot of them are young. Like, how do you get them ice time and
right.
also have the idea of you've got to be better and we can't be the team we were last year?
And that's, you know, that's where I still think development, even if they don't want to say this out loud, that's where I still think development will outweigh the points in the standings still this year. I mean, I think they want to be more careful this year in how they, you know, talk about winning and losing games, because it's not just about a rabid, passionate fan base that you know wants to see this team take the next step. Let's deal with the elephant in the room. They've got an owner to manage up to too. I mean, Jeff Wilson wants to get back in here, and you know, I just don't think it's going to happen this year. But if they can improve and show enough promise that you know it's around the corner, then that's a successful year for them. I just think at the end of the day, you know, you want to let that young blue line make mistakes if it means that their development triumphs. You know, you don't want to start benching guys right out of the gate because they gave the puck away. They're going to give the puck away. There's a lot of talent there, but a lot of inexperience. And I think it's just the reality of that blue line.
Pierre, how excited is Montreal about this Lane Hutson kid? I mean, he looks like he's small. He's not a big guy. He reminds me, I mean, the comparisons to Quinn Hughes as far as not being a big body, very dynamic at the blue line. You know, is it a situation where they pretty much have to have him on the team because he's that good? Or, like you said, there's going to be some growing pains there. I do believe he can play in the AHL at 20 years old, so they might have some flexibility there if he struggles out of the gate.
They do have flexibility, and, boy, it must be hard to resist not doing that because they can. And, again, it's about development. But, you know, I also think they see what we see. He just looks ready already, you know. That comes with mistakes, believe me, but he's so dynamic. And, you know, honestly, I'd be handing him the keys to the second power play unit, quite frankly, right out of that gate, I would. I just think he's that talented. But with that will come a learning curve and some mistakes. But, you know, this is a different NHL than 10, 15 years ago. And I think teams are more open to giving these guys a chance. And so, yes, there exists a possibility that Laval is there for him. But honestly, it wouldn't shock me if he made it right out of opening day.
With Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider, Thatcher Demko spoke today out in Vancouver about his lower body muscle issue that he said no hockey player has ever experienced what he's experiencing. Like, they've been searching for someone that they can reference that's going through what he's going through, which is a pretty incredible statement. That I did not like the tone of it. I'd be nervous in Vancouver, man. I've been I wouldn't say trying to downplay it, but I'm like, if he's healthy, he's all good. Vancouver will be all good. But I'm more concerned today than I have been at any point. How concerning do you think this should be if you're a Vancouver Canuck fan? What's going on with Thatcher Demko?
Yeah, so I think that Demko himself and the Canucks are in a better place than they probably were a couple months ago with all this, because I think it's been a very frustrating. I made a few calls on this. A very frustrating process because, Demko talked about it today. What they discovered is that he has a very unique injury that they ended up talking to all kinds of doctors all over the world, not just North America, but from overseas as well, trying to get an explanation to what this is. I think they found a skier at some point that may have had it, but certainly not a hockey player. But it's also not major. It's just understanding, what do I do with this? And I think they got it in a pretty good place now, but because of this journey, my understanding is he's basically 4 weeks behind where he would be normally at this point. So where does that put you? 4 weeks, more or less, probably, going to play games at some point in October, I think, but the team and Demko himself don't want to give a firm timeline. They obviously don't want to rush him back. I was told today, hey, if all goes well, he could be ready for the start of the season, but I also don't think they want to push it. So I would say, Hayes, that it's been a very interesting process for them to figure out what this is, but they feel a lot better about it now that they've had all these consultation and they've done all this research. So I think long term for the rest of the year, I actually think this is going to be fine. But I think it was important for Demko to clear the air because of all the different things that were being said about it leading up to the start of camp.
With Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider, Nazem Kadri's one of our favorites on the show, and Naz showed up at camp today, and he was being pestered with questions about his future, and do you think he'll stick around, and what happens with his team, and let's play this, actually, because it's a pretty good retort. It's what you would expect out of Nazem Kadri when he was being asked some questions that he wasn't sure were necessary on day one of camp.
I love the city. Love the organization. I mean, I feel like it's super early to be asking these kind of questions, so I'm going to ask you guys to just pump the brakes a little bit. Let us go play. And, we're going to try to rally around each other and surprise some people.
All right, I like that attitude.
That's leadership.
That is. And I think that has to be the approach because, a veteran player like that, he's not stupid. Naz realizes, a lot of things better break their way because it doesn't feel like it's going to be an overly fun season in Calgary.
No, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, what with everything Naz just said, let's put that aside, and I'll ask you, what do you think his future and some of the vets like Uyghur and Huberdeau and others, what is likely going to happen with them over the next year or two at Calgary?
Well, Huberdeau, that contract.
He's not going anywhere. I threw him in because I'm a nice guy. Yeah, being positive.
He
positive guy.
He needs to focus on himself and get his game back on track. But, listen, I get where, Kadri's coming from. First day of camp is literally the most optimistic day of the year in hockey, in any sport. And bang, it's like the line of questioning is, well, obviously this team is going to suck. What do you think that means for you? But that's also the job of my colleagues in the media corps in Calgary. That's a big storyline is a continued rebuild and tear down and where's this team headed? They're just doing their jobs. Here's what I would say on Nazem Kadri. I think he wants to take a wait-and-see attitude to how this year goes, and maybe they surprise people. I don't know if I see that. What I would say about him is this stuck with me last year when the Flames kept, trading away pieces, and I was kind of wondering where this would leave Kadri. And I remember an executive from another team saying, here's the thing about Nazem Kadri. Love the player, hate the contract. And so, it's not an easy deal to move, even if that were something that eventually Kadri and the Flames agree that maybe they should do for the best interest of everyone. Now, that might be a different conversation if there's retained salary. And again, because teams covet what he brings. Honestly, the Avalanche have never recovered from him leaving in free agency. They won the cup with him because he played a very important role on that team and what he brings. And so there are a lot of contenders that would love to get their hands on Nazem Kadri eventually. I just think, though, that we have to be cognizant of the fact that that's a difficult contract to move.
You touched on Huberdeau. Are we just all at a point where it's kind of over? Like, is he just going to be a guy that might get 15 or 20 goals and 40 points, and that's just what it is? It's kind of bizarre, Pierre. It's like top 5 in Hart voting. He moves locations, and he's just not even. Yeah. It's not even close, and it doesn't look like it's going to get back on track. I don't know how that happens.
Maybe I'm naive. But I can't believe that it's over. He's too young, and it's not like he had the one great year. Yes, it was a career year that led to that contract, but he had a lot of good offensive years in Florida. Like where did that go? Like, is playing with Alexander Barkov that much of a factor? It's certainly a factor, obviously, but I still think there's chance for a great story here myself. And maybe that's me just being naive and being the glass half full guy, but there's no way you can go off a precipice that dramatically and not at least come back to some degree, So, yeah, I do think that there's a chance he rebounds a little.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, 55 points, or 55 2 years ago and 52 last year. I wonder what the odds would be that he gets 70. Could he get to 70? Could he get to a point a game, 80? Like, that's the interesting.
But guys, for watching him last couple of years, or watching him last year, it would seem like there would be no chance that body of work could go out there and get 70 or 75 points.
Mm. Yeah, and it's certainly. He means well. I remember catching up with him last year when the Flames were in Toronto. No one's harder on Jonathan Huberdeau than Jonathan Huberdeau. I'm sure you guys know that. Like, he just beats himself up badly. And maybe that's part of the approach that has to change, is getting in the right place in terms of where he needs to be. But, they're not going to be a very good team, I don't think. So it's hard to score, put up a lot of offense in that context as well. And the other thing is, even if he did, quote unquote, surprise with let's say a 70-point season, by any definition, that's still a disappointment as per the cap hit. Right. That's why it's such an anchor and so heavy to carry. But at the end of the day, no one forced him to sign that deal either.
With Pierre LeBrun, expansion appears to be on its way here for the National Hockey League. Can you try to explain to fans who listen and watch this show why this would be a good thing for fans? Like not in Atlanta and Houston, if those are the two spots that get the teams, but everywhere else in the league. Why would anyone want more teams in the NHL?
I will say, I will say, just for argument's sake, I did check with a league official in the last couple of hours, and they said there was still nothing official that way. But you're right, the momentum seems there, and it has for a couple of years, let's be honest. And really what has probably delayed it is that they have to figure out Arizona to Utah first, right? And so for sure there's momentum towards expansion. I don't know if I can you're forcing me to make a case that I don't truly believe in, but I guess the case would be this, that, the game has spread so much internationally compared to 25 years ago. They're way more, never mind overseas, but also even just USA Hockey keep pumping out higher numbers, more players, right? There's more players playing the game. So the idea of diluting the sport, but again, you're forcing me to make an argument that I don't really want to make, because I think 32 is more than enough. And especially because, I don't think every single market within the 32 right now is that healthy. So I don't know why the rush, other than what the obvious answer is.
It's money.
Oh my gosh! This is going to be a huge ticket for the next expansion process. Now, I will tell you, there's one market that would get me excited if Gary Bettman was ever willing to go down that road, and it's the one that we live in.
Yes.
A second team in Toronto. For years I've been pushing, and others have as well, of course. But you want to talk about HRR and You don't think the NHLPA would be in favor of that? And we have two teams in LA basically with the Ducks and the Kings. Or three teams in the New York area. Why do we not have two teams in the biggest market in the game, and not just the biggest market in the game, but a market, with a population that likes to spend on big events? I mean, it can, I think, for sure, easily financially support two teams. And not only, everyone's going to say, well, no, everyone's a Leafs fan here. You guys live here. There are lots of people who have moved here from other parts of the world in the country who would jump on that second team bandwagon in a heartbeat, just like we saw with the Mets in New York decades ago. Everyone thought it wouldn't work to put another team back in New York against the Yankees. Well, guess what? I'm telling you, it would be unreal. But I've asked Gary Bettman before at news conferences. In fact, I looked this up yesterday, and I asked him 2 years ago, and he basically shot me down big time. But I'd love to see it. That's the expansion
I'm with you.
To talk about.
I agree with you there.
Too.
Yep. There's no question it could work. It would work. I just don't think Bettman's the guy that will do it. I think Bettman's got to retire, and someone new has to come in and push that. The problem is that if they're going to get to 34 or 36 or whatever, and Toronto's not included, are they going to go to 38 to get Toronto a team? 40? I mean,
well, and don't forget that they will want to go back to Arizona one day. I guarantee you that.
Sure,
why not? Giving up on that market. They are going back to Arizona.
That's what really puts it into perspective how stupid
that
it is.
Jumps ahead of Toronto, a second team. Like, how does that jump ahead? That's insane.
Atlanta for a third time, Arizona for a second time over a second team in Toronto is just blasphemy.
But don't you think, I mean, I 100% agree. But doesn't that come down to territorial rights? You think the Leafs want to give up any type of MLSE? Or like,
of course not.
They print money.
That's always been the story and the threat, Going back many years, we've always heard of it, the conversation that Larry Tannenbaum had with Gary Bettman years ago, and whether there's a promise or not a promise, whatever it is, it's always hard to get, understand exactly what went down. But there's always been this sense that Gary Bettman, to some degree, always, told the Leafs that this would never be a road he would go down. But again, we can dream.
Yeah, we can. Well, and Buffalo's a part of that too. Like Buffalo, there's a lot of people in Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, Hamilton that just go to Buffalo, or like, hey, I'll be a Sabres fan or I'll go there. If there's a second team in Toronto, maybe in a perfect world, the tickets are a bit cheaper. You can get in on the ground level. That would have a ripple effect on the Sabres as well. So, we'll see. But all right, Pierre. We'll leave it there, buddy. Good stuff. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
And thanks for not asking me about my trip to Dallas. That's very, very gentlemanly.
Oh, we heard about it. We heard.
Okay, we got to ask you now. I mean, what was it like to spend that kind of money, fly down there, that kind of time consumption, to see them get destroyed by Derek Carr and the Saints?
Yeah. Well, first of all, a huge prop to the Saints. Man, are they a story early on this year. But, by the end of the first quarter, I was like, holy cow, this is over. And my wife says she's never seen me take something like that so well, so I must be maturing. And I wasn't even having pops. The game was a noon start in Dallas, and we wanted to get a few more things done after the game. So I wasn't even able to sort of drown my sorrows. I just sat there and watched the game, and believe it or not, did not leave till the final clock went down to 0.
That's the testament of a true fan and someone that flew like 3.5 hours to get down there. Because, you might as well. What else you can do? It's not like you're a ticket holder that lives in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I was too busy after answering text messages from O-Dog. So.
As you should. As you should be. Thank you, Pierre. We'll do it again soon.
All right. See you guys.
Pierre LeBrun joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. So we have been stating for the past couple of weeks, we're going to the President's Cup. We're going to be broadcasting live at Royal Montreal from Tuesday through Friday next week. We cannot wait. And we've been offering up one lucky listener an opportunity to take that ride with us. And we want to congratulate Chris Corner. Chrissy is on his way there. You've won flight, accommodations for 2, $500 spending cash, and 2 tickets to see the world's top players compete at the Royal Montreal Golf Club. We love it. Chris Corner, shout out.
That's a great trip if you're a golf fan, any kind of sports fan.
Cool.
Yeah.
So cool, man. You're in Montreal, too. Like, it's the Habs are around, the Alouettes are around. I think the Grey Cup could be kicking around. It's just
the only one tricky
thing
about that, and I've gone to a bunch of golf tournaments, but I've never been to a format like that, is like, where do you post up? Like, what's the format? What's the move? Do you like walk because there's like tents, like built up tents on 18 green, and there's a percentage of the matches that don't even get there.
Well, that's true.
Can you imagine sitting there all day and getting crushed and not seeing one shot?
That would suck.
That is possible.
It is.
On Thursday, there's 6 matches. On Friday, there's 6 matches. You know, they start in the afternoon. It's not morning, afternoon. It's not, like there's, I hadn't thought of that. Being on 18 in a match play scenario.
It's not getting there.
It's there. Very rarely does it get to 18. Now, when it does, it is electric because it's there for a reason.
It's the ultimate roll of the dice, though.
You can't beat it. And you're right, though, because, these pairings will go out one after the other. Everyone's going to be on like 4-hole chunks.
That's it.
If you're there 1 through 4, you're going to see everything. But once they clear through, that's it. They're gone. And if you want to set up shop, I'm going to set up on 13 and wait. Well, it's going to take a while until they get there. But once they do get there, it's the best players in the world that are coming through. Like one, bang, 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 bang. It'll be great.
Yeah.
But it is different than like the RBC Canadian Open. It's just a totally different beast. Guys are going out at 7 in the morning. Like you set up shop. You get there at 9:30, 10 o'clock, you are going to see golf every second of the day up until 7, 8 o'clock, where it's definitely different this time around. But we'll be there, and we're looking forward to it. So shout out to Chris. All right, Matt Chatham still to come. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel on the game tonight. We'll tee up Week 3 of the NFL next. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Week 3 starting tonight. Jets, Pats. Lots of history between these two teams. It's been lopsided history, I'd say, over the last 25 years. The Patriots have owned the Jets. I guess over 25 years, they've basically owned every team in the division. They own the Bills. They own the Dolphins. But this is not Tom Brady. This is not Bill Belichick anymore. It's a new era for the Pats, but they've looked good through 2 weeks. And it's supposed to be a new era for the Jets as well because Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Didn't look so great Week 1. Was better Week 2. They found a way to get a win. Home opener tonight in New York. And to chat about it, we're joined by longtime NFLer. Here's Matt Chatham. How you doing, Matt?
Excellent. How you doing, guys?
We're doing very well. I mean, I guess we'll start with the game tonight. We know the history. Do you think it matters at all that the Patriots have had the number of the Jets in the past, considering there's been a fair amount of turnover for both teams?
Well, I saw this from both sides, as both a Patriot and Jet. I think from the Patriots side of it, the history. You know that you've often had their number. You know that the rivalry was high and hot. And a lot of that, in candor, I mean, I know the fan bases may feel differently, but in the locker room, a lot of that was driven by Coach Belichick's animosity towards them, right? I mean, he got up because of his history. He got up because of his history with them. So you kind of fed off of, hey, Bill took this one serious, right? Not that he doesn't take them all serious, but it meant a lot to him, and I think that sort of moves downhill. In New York, it's just this sort of little brother feel. It means, they're every offseason putting together the plan for how things are going to go, and they have high aims and big goals. And I know the Bills have kind of run the division for the last few years, but there is a psychological thing of getting past the Pats, of believing that, you've surpassed them now. So, Gerard Mayo gets an opportunity here to sort of chart his own path and, start a new streak, I guess, with his crew, with these guys. But it just means a lot for the Jets to at least get the home and home here, to get the home one and show that they've turned the corner themselves.
Talking about turning the corner, Matt, where are you at with Aaron Rodgers and how he looks and how comfortable he has been in the first couple games?
I mean, he's still a very competent passer. I think the pocket movement's not nearly, what he was when he was in his prime, but the guy can fling it as well as anyone out there, and he can still make tough throws. He can still make plays when, the popular phrase now, the off-script stuff, if need be. He's great at finding the open man. He's great at leading people. away from coverage. He's still Aaron Rodgers, at his core. So the one thing, though, that is hard to miss is this is still an offense through 2 weeks that, they put up 19 in what wasn't a very competitive game against the Niners, and they were just a 17-point offense until I think it was maybe 3 or 4 minutes left in the game against the Titans. So they have some scary players in Breece Hall, and then they've got, with Wilson at the receiver position, and then you got Aaron flinging it. So you've got high-end targets and a high-end quarterback, but they haven't hit their stride yet. I mean, we're not talking about a 30-point offense, which you often will see with an Aaron Rodgers-led group. So I think there's still some curiosity about where they're at as well.
As far as New England goes, like everyone before the season started had them picked as going to be having a difficult season. It's looked pretty good. Like, are you waiting for the air to come out? Like, how long can they keep kind of hanging on, not scoring a lot of points and just a lot of hard work, defense? Like, are you expecting the air to come out of this?
Well, I don't think they're ever sort of brightest days for the way they're built. This is a team that can win a lot of football games scoring right around 20 points a game. I think that's kind of the idea. They're not going to attempt, the 30-plus pass attempts is probably not in the script. Game script can pull you that way if you get down. But I think their intention thus far, at least through 2 games, has been to run it, and to go ahead and give us 10 boxes and see what we can do with Ramondre Stevenson. And Gibson now is sort of an alternative. So they've had sort of a 2-back kind of situation, look great on the ground through 2 weeks. The pass attempts are lower because, if you're running it, you can't throw it, right? So I think that's more of a choice. But when you put 2 games out there and you've got a defensively minded group with Coach Saleh, they're going to look at how New England has approached other teams and say, hey, we're not going to be the ones that let you have 180, 190 on the ground. We're going to make you throw it. I mean, presumably they'd much rather see Jacoby have a 35 attempt kind of day. So I don't know if, seeing more productivity in the passing game is necessarily, a goal or an aim, or necessarily they want more productivity, more efficiency, I guess, in the times that they do it. But I still feel like that Patriots offense is built to run the football, to blood your nose. And once they finally settle in on who exactly the starting 5 is going to be for them on the offensive line, we're presuming a new face at left tackle again this week, it helps. The continuity helps, and they'll get better and better and better at that one core function, which is running the football. Are they ever going to be a group this year that wants to sit back and 5 and 7 step drop and pass protect for 4 or 5 seconds? Probably not. It just doesn't appear to be their thing. But I don't think that hurts them as long as they don't turn the football over, they force 1 or 2 on the other side, and they play more of a ball control kind of mode.
With Matt Chatham, former NFLer, former Pat, former Jet. You played for Belichick. You played with Tom Brady. Of those 2, which one did you think was more likely to turn into a media mogul?
It's actually funny that either are doing this now, to be honest. It's a weird thing with quarterbacks because, you've seen some of the greatest of previous eras. I mean, there wasn't like a long – I think Montana gave it a swing, did a season or 2 of games. Really wasn't his thing. So you don't always necessarily – even Peyton Manning's not – he's doing his kind of Manning cast thing and doing sort of alternative media. He's all over commercials, and he's in front of lots of cameras. But just being a hardcore game analyst didn't appeal to him, it appears anyway. So that's not the way he went. Tom's doing that now, and it's cool to see him, improving week to week, and I think he's going to be spectacular at it. Bill is doing this sort of more alternative media thing. He's doing the in-game commentary, the ongoing conversation throughout a game, post-game stuff, and just more culture talk and front office talk. And so you're kind of getting to hear a little side from both of these guys. But the part I enjoy the most is the in-game stuff and getting to hear Tommy, get his legs under him and start to really dig into the details he sees that most don't. I mean, that's the part I think people are really going to appreciate. You get 8, 10, 12 games under your belt, feel comfortable with the pace of things, and you're just able to let it rip. I think Tom will be really one of the best.
With Matt Chatham, so we always hear, as non-football players, we're always hearing 0-2, 0-2, 0-2. If you're 0-2, you're in trouble. Yeah. If you're 0-2, it's intense. I'm not sure you're ever 0-2 at any point in your career, Matt, but can you speak to that if you're the Ravens, if you're the Bengals, if you're the Jags, the Rams? There's a number of teams in the league that are facing a real hole here. If you go 0-3, the intensity of this week with teams, especially that had high expectations. I guess I'm specifically talking Baltimore and Cincinnati. If you're 0-2, what is life like around a team that's 0-2?
Well, it's only natural to start to have some feelings of urgency or even doubt, and that, the off seasons are long. You're sitting there for whatever it is, 5 or 6 months with a plan. Things are building. There's good feelings around the building. Everyone's excited, and you've got sort of a thoughts for how this is going to go down. And we all know the holes are really hard to dig out of. 2 is bad. 3 is terrible. You start looking at 1-4 or 1-5 or even 2-6, and we just start getting too far behind the 8 ball, and it's tough to catch up in this league. So there is definitely a sense of it's got to happen now, right? Let's just not. I think especially for guys who've been on teams that lose, that have been on a 5-11 season or worse, and that just living multiple games under 500 sort of puts you in a different tier, and people look at you differently. The expectations for what this could become it gets different. But we're still so early here that 1-2 is not much different than 2-1. So you can correct things really quickly with a good showing. I think the things that sting you the most is when you play pretty well but don't win, and those are frustrating. You got to get across the line. You got to finish games off, and teams that are built well and that are pretty stacked as far as personnel that aren't getting that done, that's when the frustration set in. When you go out there and throw the ball out and you can tell you're not as good as you thought you were, that's a different conversation. When you feel good and you're losing by a score, or you're making some late game mistakes because you're a little ragged because these preseasons are so short and off seasons are so non-contact, I think that can get very, very disappointing very, very fast. Nobody likes being on a bad team.
No question about that. With Matt Chatham, so rub, smoke, love. What are we dealing with here? What have you got yourself into? What could you tell us about this?
So I left Nesson 2 years ago. So it was a dozen years of doing TV and media stuff, and I was anxious to get into food production again. I got an MBA from a school called Babson out here. Babson College has been the number 1 rated MBA program for something like 30 years. Awesome in entrepreneurship, and I just kind of wanted to do something else. I think a lot of guys get the itch for. So yeah, I own a barbecue rub and seasoning company, and we're killing it. I think we're somewhere short of about 200 stores right now, and we'll add another couple hundred around the first of the year, and we're growing fast. And I think I'm keeping worse hours than I did as a football player. So it's not. It's a lot, but I'm absolutely having a blast.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. Well, it was great catching up with you. Great talking football and rubs and barbecues and all that good stuff, man. And we'll do it again down the road. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Matt Chatham, former Jet, and now he's CEO.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Love, man. That's pretty cool.
Beefcake seasoning. It looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah, he's got some pretty good stuff.
I'm looking at it on Amazon right now.
It's on Amazon. Hey, you can find it on Amazon. All right, there you go, man. That's the thing. Like short careers. Like he had a pretty good career. I think he was in the league for like 8 years.
Gotta have something to do.
That's the thing. You get to 31, 32. He's a really obviously well-spoken guy, analytically driven guy. He knows stuff. He's been in the trenches. He's seen it. He's done it. He's won Super Bowls. And Nesson is a sports network in New England. And obviously he worked with them for a long time. And he's like, all right, I'm mid-40s. I got to do something else for the next 20, 30 years.
Exactly.
And he's going to change it up. So good for him. I love it. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel. Looking at the game tonight. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Obviously laying the points. Firm believer in where my partner's head is at. Jets laying 6.5. Aaron Rodgers, alternate passing yards stat tonight. 200-plus yards in the air for Aaron Rodgers. And Ramondre Stevenson, his name's come up a lot this afternoon. He's a really good running back. 50-plus yards rushing. That's your same-game parlay paying plus 365. I love that tonight. Jets laying the points. Rodgers 200-plus yards in the air. Stevenson 50-plus yards on the ground. Plus 365. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of the Overdrive same-game parlay. Please play responsibly. 18-plus, physically located in Ontario. We'll come back and wrap up a busy afternoon and tee up the games again tonight. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, a couple of items to get to here. Kevin Gausman left the game. He had a no-hitter going through 5, and I guess he's got back stiffness, so that'll be it. He won't pitch again this year.
No.
You get into mid-September and your team's not going anywhere. Anything happens.
Well,
you're like,
just like a
later.
team that's tanking, it's like a guy has a sore back, you're not playing the rest of the year.
Yeah, you're done.
I know, but you say rest of the year. It's like 10 days.
10 days.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, like
it's not that much.
Done for the year. They're like, yeah, he's
right.
He's
like, don't even fill out
days.
the paperwork. Don't even put him on the IL. So
Exactly.
don't even do it. It's a waste of time. Who cares?
It's one start.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Gausman left today, but the Jays did win. Vladdy hit a home run, or a couple home runs. He's up to 30-plus now in the season, so he hit that number. That's significant. And the Dodgers are playing right now, and Ohtani's already got a home run and 2 stolen bases, so he's hit the 50 stolen base mark. He's actually up to 51, and he just hit his 48th home run.
49th.
Is it 49? I guess he was 48 going into the game. You're right. So he's at 49 now. So he's 1 home run away from 50 and 50.
He'll do it. What inning is that game in?
Is late. I think it was 7th inning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the top of the 7th.
It'll happen tomorrow, if not today.
Yeah,
well, they're playing Miami exactly. Like he will get another home run by the end of the year. I don't think there's much doubting that, but that's just an astonishing statistic, man.
Yeah.
50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, $700 million. Welcome to LA. I guess you were in LA before, but welcome to the Dodgers.
Big bucks.
Pretty
I'm just
incredible.
always impressed with like the automatic ability to be able to deliver. Like he's just that good where it's just automatic. Whether it's Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Ohtani, Tom Brady, it's like I'm not going to be like, "Oh, what the hell's up with this guy?"
Right.
It's just
above.
awesome. Yeah.
It's just it really is something you just have to be in awe of, because there's no transition, there's no new system, new team. I'm uncomfortable here.
No, it's just I'm the best in the game and watch this.
And this is the way it goes.
Yeah.
And they're saying he may be available to pitch come the playoffs, which would be pretty incredible. Obviously, he won't be starting, but could he? Imagine they got to the World Series and he came in. That guy came in like the 8th or 9th inning to close something out. That would be a storybook that not even Hollywood could write.
What if he hits a dinger in the World Series and gets a save?
That would be incredible. A home run, a stolen base, and a save in a World Series win. He's the only guy that could ever do that.
Yeah.
You know,
that would be unreal.
Could be on the table for him.
Yeah.
But so he's 4 for 4 today. Pretty good stuff.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of totally forgot about the pitching this year, just watching him hit bombs and steal bases. You forget the pitching element,
right.
And then you're like,
it's
that
coming,
guy's
man.
like that guy's a first-rate pitcher.
He's an absolute stud on the mound. Like, he throws heat, and he's outstanding. Yeah, like he had, what did he have, like a 3.50 ERA? Like his career ERA is definitely in the 3s. Mm-hmm. Definitely in the 3s.
It's insane.
He had a game last year, or a back-to, I think it was a double-header in Detroit, where he pitched a complete game and had like 8 or 9 strikeouts, and then played in the afternoon and had 2 home runs. Something crazy like that. He's just a freak of nature. He's unbelievable. So that's where Ohtani's at. You know, Judge on the other side, he snapped out of the slump. He hit that grand slam at Yankee Stadium. I think that was over the weekend against the Red Sox, which was pretty cool. But there's battles going on throughout baseball. Teams are celebrating. A lot of teams know they're going to the playoffs, but there's still some jockeying for position. We were playing that clip of the Milwaukee Brewers and Bob Uecker partying, and the Yankees they've clinched, and Baltimore's been struggling a lot recently, and the Yankees are going to win that division, and it's just a matter of who's going to be the top seed in the American League. It'll be them or Cleveland. It looks like it anyway at this point, but I think they're going to avoid the wild card, because it'll probably be Houston and the 3 wild card teams.
I love seeing the teams that like get crushed and they have a game the next day. It's like, how good are you going to be tomorrow?
That's where the betting.
The Jays had to do it. I think the last couple of years, like they could just get smoked in the locker room, and they have a game the next day.
Yes, all the time that happens. Like a day game the next day, and you're like, these guys are flooring it, and there's video evidence of this, and yet they play again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yet, if you go through that kind of a grind, 155 games to get to this point, you punch a ticket, have a party.
Exactly.
And reset.
Enjoy yourself.
Be ready for the playoffs. Exactly. All right, Hayes and Bro, the pick is in. Al's brother out of his retreat, seeing the board very clearly, laying the points. Jets 6.5. Yes. Jets. Jets. Fireman Ed, happy birthday. Yeah. Happy birthday to Fireman Ed. And we'll see what we have of the game tonight. All right. Good stuff. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out today. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
I hope you enjoyed Al's brother's last show, 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.